we see a very effective, slick use of social media, of the internet, by organizations such as
Gonna party live.
Cyberspace is presenting us with some of the most profound challenges.
Much of what makes cyber so challenging is that technology is changing so rapidly, and society along with it. In many respects, the world is transforming before our eyes as more and more human activity migrates to that cyber digital domain, and more of our daily lives depend on that domain for social interactions, financial transactions, commerce, trade, communication, education, information, entertainment, and the list goes on and on. But the fact remains that many technological and scientific advances have proved throughout history to be double-edged swords.
Hello, this is Justin Hess with the U.S. Department of Counter-Tyranny Operations. All you need to do is internet search Obama admits to training terrorists.
I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism.
And get a tap onto that cell phone, or those cell phones that are being used, or the electronic communications that are being used to transmit those messages.
To battle with extremists online. We need more of that, including from the private sector.
So these people who hold themselves out to be patriots are not. They're nothing more than domestic terrorists.
Social media companies can also do their part by swiftly shutting down terrorist accounts so they're not used to plan, provoke, or celebrate violence.
I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism.
This has gone on too long, and it's time the entire country stood up against the NRA. Cycling about two.
Fuck that bitch. Fuck that bitch. Fuck that bitch.
Online or offline, the bottom line is that we are in a contest of ideas. We are in an information war, and we are losing that war.
On controversial issues.
Fuck that bitch. Fuck that bitch. Fuck that bitch.
And our private media cannot fill that gap.
On controversial issues.
Cannot fill that gap. In fact,
a number of nations and a number of states and cities are making decisions at the moment about whether they want to shut themselves off from new technology and new consumer choice enabled through the internet.
Surprisingly, for a country that invented social media, not great at it. We're not great at surveying it, and we're not great at doing it. And that's stunning to me, that the enemy here is way better certainly at using social media to foment and inspire. And we don't have, to use Mike's terminology, a counter-narrative, we don't have the same power in that space that we should.
And there will be a few troubled losers who are on the internet too much and so forth and decide to take up and attack.
You don't fuck with a god.
The President had a cybersecurity summit a few weeks ago, in which you could see that our national leadership at every level is really seized with the need to get on top of this problem.
Make sure that you can put intelligence gathering as the top priority.
About what you do with big data, and American industry discovers many things. I was on a panel a year or two ago with Keith Alexander, my successor at NSA, and Eric Schmidt from Google. And we were talking about the NSA metadatabase, you know, the phone bill thing up there. And Eric was just going on saying, look, I understand why these guys want to do it. You run powerful algorithms against this database, you establish relationships, you learn this, you learn that, and it goes on. And the fact of the matter is, creating a door for the government to enter at the technological level. Recall back in the 90s where we were going to guarantee that in the chip there would be a way in?
Big Brother is watching. There's a nationwide push to start tracking where children are during school hours. They would basically be microchipped, kind of like a pet.
And Mike, using the same arguments that Director Comey is using, Mike fell on his sword, and he lost. Mike will tell you now, and thus began the greatest 15 years of electronic surveillance in the history of the National Security Agency. We figured out ways to get around it. Now, before any civil libertarians here want to come up to me afterwards and get my autograph, all right, let me tell you how we got around it. Bulk data and metadata, all right? All right, because frankly, intelligence gets to break all other sorts of rules and to cheat and to use alternative paths. So I'm saying that to say that I'm speaking kind of absolute terms, but I get Jim Comey's point of view.
I would have actually liked to seen this go further, but this is very important that we bring this forward.
And I would add that Senator Lieberman would have gone further than you, and nobody I respect more than Senator Lieberman, but trying to find a balanced way. So in summary here, 1032, the military custody provision, which has waivers and a lot of flexibility, doesn't apply to American citizens. 1031, the statement of authority to detain, does apply to American citizens, and it designates the world as the battlefield, including the homeland.
Nina, back
in
to
the
you.
back there with the blue shirt, there you go, that gentleman there.
Hi, Greg Charney from Charney Research. General Hayden stated that we needed to go on the offensive. I'm wondering what that actually implies. That implies some kind of military commitment in between. In addition, there's the old Powell rule, the Pottery Barn rule. If you break it, you own it. And we've discovered that there's a fairly extensive amount of reconstruction required in these societies. Obviously, we're prepared to take actions here in the homeland. Are we really prepared to make the kind of commitments that are required abroad to stem this tide?
Yeah, let me give you a corollary of General Powell's rule. If it gets broken, we appear to own it. All right? Seriously.
Well, the best that Winston Churchill said. That's right. The problem with committing political suicide is you live to regret it.
He always had the last word.
And then after that, we've got to stabilize the population. When I was born, there were
what's wrong with the population? I mean,
with too many people. That's why we have global warming.
For decades, this dinner has been an important gathering time for supporters of the UN. That's why 14 years ago I chose this dinner as the occasion to announce the commitment to help fund the United Nations by forming the UN Foundation. I love the UN and I'm proud to support it every day. One of the chief reasons the relationship.
We've got to stabilize the population. When I was born, there were
what's wrong with the population? I mean,
with too many people.
Every day.
We've got to stabilize the population.
If there's no United Nations, there's no more humanity.
The negative impact of population growth, the United Nations can and should play an essential role in helping the world find a satisfactory way of stabilizing world population.
$10 billion over the next 10 years to make it the year of the vaccines. What does that mean exactly?
Well, over this decade, we believe unbelievable progress can be made, both inventing new vaccines and making sure they get out to all the children who need them. The benefits there in terms of reducing sickness, reducing the population growth, it really allows a society a chance to take care of itself once you've made that intervention.
Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is unusual for a member of the philanthropic sector to be given the opportunity to address heads of state here at the United Nations. I'm honored by it, and I'm also encouraged. I see it as a sign of partnership, that the world understands that no sector acting alone can achieve the goals for humanity that are the mission of the United Nations.
reducing the population growth.
We've got to stabilize the population.
A satisfactory way of stabilizing world population.
It is crucial to evaluate our performance, but I think it's also important at this point to evaluate the goals themselves as a force for change. First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, health care, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
Reducing the population growth. If you gave me only one wish for the next 50 years, I can pick who's president, I can pick a vaccine, which is something I love. This is the wish I would pick. This is the one with the greatest impact. Reducing the population growth. So what do we have to do? What am I appealing to you to step forward and drive? Reducing the population growth, including the steps that the government takes. This is an important wish, but it is one I think we can achieve. Thank you. Thank you. Reducing the population growth.
The United Nations can and should play an essential role in helping the world find a satisfactory way of stabilizing world population.
We've got to stabilize the population. When I was born, there were
So what's wrong with the population? I mean,
too many people.
But in order to most effectively commit genocide against you, they need you to be disarmed. And so it is that they're working on just that.
With their little arms trade treaty on how to make you a disarmed slave.
Any representatives of the United States of America that sell out the American people to these genocidal psychopaths at the United Nations will be executed for high treason under the authority of the Declaration of Independence. You have been warned. When you sign your name to the UN Arms Trade Treaty, you will be signing your death warrant.
Evelyn de Rothschild joins us now to talk about investing in China and his latest venture, Weather Central, here as well. So Evelyn, thank you very much indeed for joining us. I just want to get your views on how things have evolved. Has it become a more open society? Has it become an easier place to do business?
Oh, I think it is, no doubt. I think it's a remarkable country. When you think of what has happened in the last 10 years, let alone 20 years, is an achievement beyond recognition. I think that one of the things that is so important is people must come to China, not only come to the East Coast, but to go into China and see the potential and see what has been developed by the government and by the private enterprise. A private enterprise is the biggest earner of opportunities, and I think it is remarkable, and I think one can but say the achievement should be recognized worldwide.
You just isolate on the economics of Asia Pacific, and by any metric or measurement you apply, it is the fastest growing, will continue to be, world's middle class, economic development, opportunities, energy. I mean, you take any frame of reference of commerce and trade, that part of the world is the most dynamic and will continue to be the most dynamic.
So, Evelyn, I want to just get to the here and now when it comes to China. There's a bit of uncertainty, but it's particularly a quandary as to what happens in terms of monetary policy. I believe that you've been talking to the People's Bank of China. What was the view you got from them?
Well, I haven't talked to them. I had the privilege of talking to the supervisor of the bank, who's an old friend of mine, Mr. Lu Mingkong. We are all concerned about the American deficit and what is happening in the United States.
China is the biggest contributor of peacekeepers among the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council.
Barack Obama, what are your thoughts on the Declaration and Constitution?
You know, I think it's a remarkable document. I think
Which one?
The original Constitution, as well as the Civil War amendments. But I think it is an imperfect document, and I think it is a document that reflects some deep flaws.
Can't wait for Congress to do its job. So where they won't act, I will. And I've told my administration, we're going to look every single day to figure out what we can do without Congress. What can we do without
I don't know why that's funny. I mean, did you have any in-person briefings? I don't find it funny at all.
I'm going to be running for president regardless, and I'm going to be continuing to put forth my policies. Obviously, I was proud to be a member of President Obama's cabinet, but I also have ideas where I want to go, not just build on what was done, but go beyond. And I will be laying that out. This has gone on too long, and it's time the entire country stood up against the NRA.
China is sending a combat unit on UN peacekeeping duties. The 700 troops will be the largest so far China has sent on UN peacekeeping missions. The troops will be involved in
I want to thank the United Nations for hosting today's events.
But since this year, China started deploying infantry battalions.
And it's time the entire country stood up against the NRA.
This will require them to undertake long-distance travel and spend a long time away from their headquarters. Soldiers are equipped with light weapons, and each has had to master at least 2 kinds of weapons. Adjustments have been made to nearly 200 vehicles, so they're better accustomed to the local weather and terrain. Windows have also been added to vehicles so weapons can be fired from them. All the vehicles are equipped with 3 sets of telecommunication systems in order to make patrolling at night convenient.
Hillary Clinton has described already the meeting in the White House over 2 years ago. Everyone in the national security team recommended arming ISIS, and the president.
So with the additional steps I ordered last month, we're speeding up training of ISIL forces, including volunteers from Sunni tribes in Anbar province. More Sunni volunteers are coming forward. Some are already being trained, and they can be a new force. I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism.
We had this brilliant idea that we were going to come to Pakistan and create a force of mujahideen, equip them with Stinger missiles and everything else.
Alarming new images of American-made weapons falling into the hands of ISIS. M16s, heavy machine guns.
American armored vehicles and Humvees, and left behind a trail of death.
I don't know why that's funny. I mean, did you have any in-person briefings? I don't find it funny at all.
I'm sorry, a little note of levity at 7:15.
Well, I mean, the reason I say it's not funny is because it went well into the night when our folks on the ground were still in danger. So I don't think it's funny to ask you if you were alone the whole night.
Congresswoman, you asked if I had
had this brilliant idea that we were going to come to Pakistan and create a force of mujahideen, equip them with Stinger missiles and everything else.
Rifles, ammunition, armored personnel carriers, Humvees. But this is a scene that's been replayed a variety of times.
Question of very great interest to this audience. Is Hillary going to run? Now, let me give you a background on Hillary, because in 2008, Warren promised support to both Hillary and Barack Obama. Yep. And then when he found out that he'd done that, he said, well, okay, I'll just be a bigamist. So he did back both.
The only time I've been a bigamist.
Okay, tell us, is Hillary going to run?
Hillary's going to run.
Hillary's going to run.
Yeah.
How soon is she going to announce it?
She's going to announce it as late as possible.
Uh-huh. Well, how late is possible?
Well, I'm giving a direct quote.
Now, final question on that. Is Hillary going to win?
Hillary's going to win. Yeah.
Well, I know. I've heard just in the last few days that some of the political pundits, like Ed Rollins, are saying that it is going to be true.
I will bet money on it. I mean,
you will bet money.
I don't do that easily.
Yet as the comprehensive new report published by the Clinton Foundation and the Gates Foundation this week makes clear,
Hillary going to win.
Hillary's going to win. Yeah.
I want to thank the United Nations for hosting today's events. I have been often to, I guess, the mothership in New York City, but it's good to have an outpost of the Council right here down the street from the State Department. We get a lot of advice from the Council, so this will mean I won't have as far to go to be told what we should be doing and how we should think about the future.
Put policy prescriptions before the president. After all, that's our job.
They make the decision.
So with the additional steps I ordered last month, we're speeding up training of ISIL forces, including volunteers from Sunni tribes in Anbar province. More Sunni volunteers are coming forward.
I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism.
Sarah Wolf is a spokesperson for the Westlands Water District, a company that oversees the man-made complicated water delivery system in the Central Valley.
How many years has this been the process?
It was completed in 1968.
Okay, so decades.
Yes.
All the farmers along all this land, which is 2/3 of the state of California, have depended on water to grow their crops. But the water's turned off here, so none of these farmers can expect to get any water.
That's correct.
2 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to do this. This was a canal full of gushing water irrigating the farmland here in the San Joaquin Valley. But as you can see, it is all dried up. One lawmaker in Washington is fighting back.
You're spending $1 trillion, and you won't put in one provision that would save 60,000 jobs. This is an insult to my constituents.
What we have today is a man-made drought brought on by laws passed by Congress to where we're taking the breadbasket of the world and starving it of water.
Farmers who have watched their land go from this to this.
Shutting off water for farms that have been there for what, generations?
Generations, third generation farmers, Sean. Their grandfathers were out there, blood, sweat, and tears to making sure those crops were going to grow so that you and I would have fruits and vegetables, and they're shutting it down.
Literally, these farmers, their farms are now dried up. There's no water. There's no production. People are losing their job. How many people are out of work there?
Well, you know, the system varies, but a lot of people here aren't working. That's why we're here. You know, we're here to show America this is our own town hall meeting here, Sean. This is, you know, we're so wrapped up in this issue, we don't have time to worry about health care because everything around us is dead. Our way of life is dying here. We really, we've tried to have the administration come to see about us. We haven't heard. They sent the Secretary of the Interior here. He gave us some nice lip service and said, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But at the end of the thing, we didn't get no water. Our fields are drying out. Something has to be done.
Now, Congressman, first, Paul, you were an Obama supporter.
Yes, absolutely. Like everybody else, we wanted change. We didn't think it was be this kind of change. But, you know, he kept his promise. We got change.
Fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
Winds whip flame into brilliant spires, exploding over ridges, creating tornadoes of flame, showering sparks that create spot fires far ahead.
Clinton has described already the meeting in the White House over 2 years ago. Everyone in the national security team recommended arming ISIS, and the president.
So with the additional steps I ordered last month, we're speeding up training of ISIL forces, including volunteers from Sunni tribes in Anbar province. More Sunni volunteers are coming forward. Some are already being trained, and they can be a new force.
I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism. Fundamentally transforming the United States of America.